And before we get into the episode today, just a big thank you to all of our patrons and our producers here on Esoteric Atlanta. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible. If you would like to help support the work we do here on Esoteric Atlanta, there is a link to our Patreon account down in the description box below. All right, you guys, welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. This is going to be kind of a Mystery Monday and coffee chat. Of course, you guys know one of my besties, Catherine, from across the pond, or, you know, it might be a creek at this point.
Yeah, exactly, probably. Yeah.
Confused about where everything is now. For my new subscribers, welcome again back to Esoteric Atlanta. I've picked up a few new people. Please make sure to go and check out if you like topics that are a little fringe, that make you think, that make you question. If you're someone who's questioned anything in your life, really, you're going to love Catherine's channel because she brings on incredible guests that have done a lot of work. They're not just sitting on crazy ideas. They've actually done research into those ideas and have quite interesting theories that make you think. So please make sure to go and subscribe to Catherine's channel. Also, make sure to make sure you guys are subscribed to our backup channels over on RUMBLE. Just because the world is crazy now, and we just want to make sure that you guys are always in touch with us. I want to say, I think I can speak for both of us, Catherine. I get a lot of comments like, oh, I haven't seen you pop up in a few years. Y'all, Catherine and I have been here every week for like 5 years. So I'm so sorry, but yeah, that's something Catherine and I can do about it. It's the platform. So if you really like our content, just check periodically throughout the week if you're not seeing our videos pop up, because I guarantee you there's going to be some videos that you might have missed, and we would love for you to be here and see this work and give your opinions. And so is there anything you want to add to that, Catherine, before we get into this fun topic?
It's so funny you raise that because one of my sort of longest listeners, she messaged me last week, end of last week, and she said, oh my goodness, you're back, you're back. You know, I haven't seen you for 3 years. And I said, I've been doing several videos a week the whole time. And the reason we use the R channel is because some of our conversations we can't have on this platform. So we do use that as a backup channel, but we also have content on there on both our channels that we cannot put on this platform.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, before we get into the fun story we're going to talk about, I wanted to, because I know we're filming this actually on Thursday. I'm going to air it on Monday, the 7th, I believe. Yeah, 4th. Yeah, 7th, I believe is what Monday is. Sorry if my math is off. For Mystery Monday. But this is the day before the 4th of July. And of course, it's funny, I'm filming with a Brit. But we know that the American Revolution was more about the establishment and not really the people, obviously, because most Americans are of British descent as well. So that's why we call each other cousins. So I just thought it'd be nice, Catherine. I'm going to do this on the 4th as well. But you know, we think about the American Revolution, we think a lot about like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, all these men. But as we are in a revolution, I believe right now, and there's a lot of women, including Catherine and myself, a lot of our viewers that have channels up in a different type of battle that we're in now versus in the 1700s. But there were women who fought in the American Revolution that don't get a lot of credit. And we call them here in America, we call them as one enigma, a Molly pitcher. So Molly was a nickname for Mary, and a lot of Marys back then. And pitcher, like a pitcher of water, they would go into the battlefield and they would give the men water. And a lot of them ended up having to actually start being in the battle because of the circumstances. So I want to say 3 women's name that we know for sure. These were 3 women that we can honor as human beings, as women, regardless of whether you are in the world. And we're kind of in their reverence because we're doing this work now today in 2025. And so the first woman, I'm just going to say her name. Mary Hayes was born on October 13, 1754, and she passed away on January 22nd, 1832. And she actually she was the original Molly pitcher. She ended up serving under George Washington. And she was so revered by the United States, well, what was the colonists that became the United States military, that she was granted a veteran's pension when she got older, and she was given a military funeral, which was wild back then for women. So she was highly respected by George Washington and by all the men who fought in the American Revolution. The next is Margaret Corbin, who was born on November 12th, 1751, and passed away on January 16th, 1800. And then Deborah Sampson, who was born on December 17th, 1760, and passed away on April 29th, 1827. And so for all the women in history past, to whatever country they were in, that their names got forgotten because they were women in history, I think Catherine and I and all of you women and men watching, we give them honor and respect for giving us the inspiration to continue to fight for freedom against this establishment. And so coming off the 4th of July, I honor all the Molly pitchers around the world who did not get the credit that they deserved. And I know there's probably plenty in England who fought in the English Civil War, who fought, that did a lot, that just never got recorded in history. Because they were women. And so for Catherine and me who have our channels, who all we got to worry about is being shadow banned. we don't have to clean cannons. So we don't have to wear petticoats.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
God, I would be so pissed if I had to wear a petticoat through all of this. So we honor those women. We thank all the women and all the men, but especially all the forgotten women for your service to humanity. So with that being said, Catherine, I told you I want to go back and look at some of our old Mystery Mondays because they're fun and they're head scratchers, and there's so many different theories as to what these phenomenons are. And this is the man from Taured. I hope I'm Taured. Do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to, Catherine?
You tell it, because you introduced me to it. I hadn't heard about it until you sent it through, but it's fascinating.
It's wild. It's a pretty simple story, and we don't have an actual date. And I think I probably can guess why there's not an actual. We know it was July in the late 1950s. Different research says different dates. I have a theory behind why they don't have the exact date. But basically, this international flight, this continental flight from Europe, landed in Tokyo, late 1950s. So a lot of the passengers getting off the plane were white people, were Europeans, right? Normal day. They're going through customs, and this man gets off the flight who is tall, European, nicely dressed. He has a briefcase with his suitcase, so you can assume he's there in Japan on business. Everything is normal. He gets up to customs, and they're confused when they see his passport because it's from a country that they're not familiar with. But they know the passport is legit. In fact, in the passport, there were stamps from all sorts of different countries, visas. The passport had shown that he had been to Japan 3 times in the past 5 years. They asked him what he was doing in Japan. He said he was here on business. He gave them the company that he worked for, the company he was meeting with, and they pulled him into a side room, and they pulled a map out, and they said, we're confused. Can you show us where your country is? And of course, there was mass confusion because this guy's like, what do you mean? And the Japanese are like, this doesn't exist. And he goes to look at the map, and he starts to freak out because his country's not on the map. Now, I wrote down Andorra, where the little principality of Andorra is now, is where allegedly Taured was, his country, but it wasn't. It was listed as Andorra. He goes on this whole spew, which is like this little principality between France and Spain, kind of near the Pyrenees, right? So he goes on this whole spew, like, my country's been in existence for 1,000 years. What are you talking about? He's absolutely freaking out. They call the company in Japan that does exist, that he says he's going to meet with, and they don't know who he is. And then they try to find the company he says he works for. That company doesn't exist. So everybody's panicking. They're like, okay, we're going to have to get the government officials. We can't obviously let you into the country. So they bring him to a hotel high up in some stories claim it's an airport hotel. Some stories claim they bring him out to a hotel in Tokyo, and they put him under lock and key. He's high up. There's no way he can get out a window. They have guards. They put him in this room. They bring him room service for dinner. And then the next day they knock on the door. No answer. They go in, and the room is completely vacant. But there's no suitcases, no briefcase, no sign that anybody's been in there. He is gone, just gone. Bed is perfectly made. And that's where the story ends. And this story has been spoken about since this time. Now, my synopsis, this is why they don't have an actual date. is because if this story is legit, I think what happened, the Japanese government might not release any information on this, but I have a feeling some of the employees came and told their family, you're not going to believe this. And so that might be why the date's a little skewed now, is that we don't have, because it kind of got passed down by word of mouth. So I'm going to ask you, Catherine, what do you think of this?
And of course, our sponsor today is the Esoteric Academy. The Esoteric Academy is a virtual online mystery school, or shala, where my friend Paula and I have opened this particular virtual shala in order to help as many people as we can. As many of you guys know, I spent a good portion of my 30s in India studying traditional yoga with one of the foremost Param gurus in the traditional yoga system of India. I am the only female who's authorized to teach this particular form of yoga in the state of Georgia. Now, with that being said, what I've done is I've taken all of the things that I have learned about the energetic body, the chakra system, the bandhas, the meridians, somatic healing, the axis point, all of these things we talk about in this Great Awakening that have to do with the body, that are energetic but manifest in the physical. I've taken all of these lessons from traditional yoga and I have incorporated them into modern day exercise classes that are more feasible for people who want to do this in the comfort of their own home. Traditional yoga can be very complicated and needs a one-on-one teacher, but with this virtual Esoteric Academy, you're able to learn all of these lessons again in the comfort of your own home, and you get me as a teacher. You get access to me to help you help yourself. Within the esoteric exercise playlist, we have so many different types of exercise, from walking videos to intense cardio to traditional yoga to bar fusion classes to strength training to even classes like the one here where we use a chair. Every single level from beginner to advanced is met on this academy. And again, once a month, you get a live class with me where I can workshop with you to help you with your own body's alignment. On top of that, you get monthly phone calls with Paula and me where we discuss things like the doshas, quantum healing, again, somatic healing. And on top of that, we have the privilege of having other master teachers join us on this platform, including my friend Cindy Ola and Todd Roderick, who is the senior most teacher in the southeast of the United States. At the Esoteric Academy, we also have a playlist full of courses, including the Alchemy of Movement, courses on the Bhagavad Gita, courses on health, healing, and beyond, a look at Ayurvedic, homeopathic healing, as well as different quantum healing practices provided by Paula and meditations. We are also developing a Vedic chanting course with Todd Roderick, who is also been granted permission to teach a very, very traditional form of Vedic chanting. And we have a new course where we are combining the teachings of the Cassiopeans with the Yoga Sutras. Now, right now, we are running a special. We try to keep our prices super low for many, many reasons. We want to be able to help as many people as possible. And we can do that on a virtual platform where we can keep the prices low so that we're able to maintain the business while helping as many people as we can. But right now, we are offering specific deals with a bunch of different content creators. So for today, for this video, I'm going to be using Catherine Edwards' code. So if you want to check out the Esoteric Academy for either the $25 a month tier, which is just the exercise classes, or the $40 a month tier, which includes all of the exercise classes as well as the courses, you can get 20% off the first 6 months of your tuition at the Esoteric Academy by using the discount code Catherine5. Catherine with the C, that will be on the screen in front of you as well as down in the description box below. On top of that, you also get 7 days of a free trial. Now, please make sure that when you use this discount code that you put all the letters in capital in the discount code area when you go to check out. Again, that's Catherine5 with the C, all capitalized letters, that will be down in the description box below. And we look forward to seeing you over on the Esoteric Academy. Now back to the show.
Mine went first full price. Was like, okay, did the passport look exactly the same? Did the clothes look exactly the same? So it is literally almost like sliding doors, where it is literally, I mean, so many people who talk about consciousness, talk about all the possibilities are up there in the ether. It's something I'm just writing about at the moment, the ether, actually, in a bit more. And so therefore you can, it is literally like a sliding door scenario. You can pick where your attention goes. And why I thought this was so fascinating is it comes back into, again, everyone gets so triggered, and I shouldn't say everyone because not everyone, but a lot of people get very triggered when we talk about choosing our own reality.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like people getting triggered when, if you're not a Christian, and you know the Christians saying that if you don't believe in Jesus, you can't go to heaven. Well, if you don't know Jesus exists, you get a get out of jail free card.
Right.
Is my understanding. A bit like, very nuanced, and a bit like this. You can't ask these spiritual questions if you don't know those questions even exist. So I think when we look at the ether and why that was deliberately removed from the periodic table over 100 years ago by, I think, pretty sure the Rockefellers again, and this field that connects everything, we know that dogs can hear a dog whistle and we can't hear it. We know that animals all have different vision, ranges of vision to us. We know that bats can echolocate and see vibrations. And so there's so much of this reality that we're not seeing. I don't think it's a big leap to think about stepping into a different reality.
Well, now even like we learned from the law of one that on third density, we're the only density that has a quantum. We're the only density that has like a spiritual, because we're the only density that has a veil. So like for our animals, they don't have a veil. They see, trust me, they see stuff. They see stuff we don't see. And they're totally, well, sometimes they're fine with it. Sometimes they bark at nothing, and they're probably not barking at nothing, you know? And I don't think, I absolutely don't think that this was a criminal enterprise, that theory. I wanted to bring that theory up, but that theory is not my opinion. That, because I'm like you, Kath, I'm like, why would they create? And I did think about that. I'm pretty good with geography. Like I'm pretty good at knowing most countries, but there are little countries in the world that maybe if you're standing in that customs, you might be like, does this country, like, hold on one second. Like, I don't recognize this country, but I thought I know all the countries, but let me just check quickly. Because
well, that's a good point though, isn't it? That's a really good point that you've raised, because a lot of people wouldn't raise it because they'd wouldn't want to look stupid. I wouldn't have a clue. I'm hopeless with geography. I just get my unicorn and say, take me there. So
Dr. Google, paging Dr.
So I wouldn't have a clue. For me, I wouldn't have questioned it, but then I probably wouldn't be given that job for that reason.
Yeah. Right. Well, how many custom agents, like, you know, I've traveled a lot internationally, and you have too, Catherine, and sometimes you get an easy breezy customs agent that's just like, hey, okay, have fun. And then sometimes you kind of get one that asks you a lot of questions.
Particularly when coming into America, oh my goodness, I've been grilled.
I have too, as an American coming into America, they will grill you a lot. And so I you know, and it, like we laugh with India, you just got to slip them some money and they just pass right on through. You know, some countries are like that. And I think you think about the customs agents, are they having a bad day? Are they having a good day? You know, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think there probably are some customs agents that just scan people through and don't even like give it a second thought, you know, like especially if you are dressed nicely and you know, I know a lot of times with customs, they're looking like the reason why, like, I can go to the UK for 3 months without a visa. Catherine can come to America for 3 months without a visa, because we are allies, right? And also because we both come from countries that are economically stable. And so we know that a British person is not going to run to America to seek asylum, and vice versa. And so there's a safety factor there, so that it's easier for you to get entry into those types of countries. But if you're coming from a more third world country, they're probably going to really look for your visa and make sure you're not going to like just stay in the country. We know all this stuff is going on in the world anyway with immigration, but I definitely, because people are people, customs agents are people like you and me. And maybe it's happened before. I mean, how many times, Catherine, do you think that maybe this has happened where people have come in from a parallel universe, not even realizing it, got scanned through and no one stopped them because they just didn't, the custom agents didn't even pay attention? Like, is this story even rare, or was it just caught because somebody was like, I don't recognize this country? Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. And I was just laughing, thinking I've been to quite a few dinner parties, particularly since 2020, but long before that too. Well, I thought I'm in the wrong room here.
I made a wrong turn somewhere.
Completely different conversation to everyone else in the room. And, you know, I jest about that, but it is a really important point. And I think for me, why I love this is even this simple story just got me thinking about so many different possibilities, Bryce. And
Yeah.
it got me thinking about, well, how much of a reality can we change and how much are we choosing to step into certain situations? I know for a fact, even if I switch the alternative media off for a week and I haven't got a clue what's happening, even on some of my favorite channels that I might watch, I'm so much happier and so much calmer because the information that we're seeing subliminally, that we're listening to, that we're taking in, that's even that we don't even notice. You know, they've done so many experiments on marketing and subliminal marketing, and people like, no, I haven't seen anything with a red cup. But they have. They've just passed it, and their subconscious mind has picked up on it, and their conscious mind haven't. And when they're asked to draw something, they all draw a red cup, and they're like, they'll swear blind they never saw a red cup.
Yeah.
So in terms of how that links into this, it's like you can imagine the guy. You know, if you're tired, if you're traveling, if the clothes are the same and it looks very similar to his reality, you just think, my God, I have stepped off. I have gone through the wrong sliding door.
It's
How freaky must he have felt?
I was gonna say that. So how that was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
How would you feel if you got off? Let's say you were coming to visit me in Atlanta, and you went through in Atlanta, guys. Atlanta Customs is one of the worst. They're because we're the busiest airport in the world, so that's a long. Like you have a 5 mile walk. It's a huge. I would rather fly in internationally to another country or another airport, and then come domestic to Atlanta. But let's say Catherine is coming to see me in Atlanta. She gets off of the airport. Everything's normal, hunky dory. She gets to customs agent, and they tell her, well, we've never heard of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Can you show us on the map?
I would just think that was the American education system. Sorry.
And then, well, when they like, and that must have been what this guy was thinking too. Oh my God, you dummies! Of course, my country exists. And they pull him aside and they show him, "Will show us on the map," and he goes to point to it, and it's Andorra. Could you imagine if you went?
Can you imagine? You would think you were losing your mind completely.
The second time reviewing this case, I was like, I actually feel for this guy. What must have because you are obviously the stranger in this situation, right? Like everybody else in Japan is living in one universe and you're living in another one, and your country is not on the map. Like,
do you know, this is so interesting because what comes to me when you're saying that, every single person watching this, I'm sure will have examples where you've been having a conversation with something, you're recounting events, and the other person's recounting a completely different story to you. Now, of course, there's nuances. You know, we'll all see things through our own belief systems, trauma, whatever. So I'm not talking about little things, but I mean, I can think of examples myself, not like your country doesn't exist. I haven't experienced that yet. I can think of experiences where I've been sitting there with friends and I'm just thinking, what are you talking about? I have no, my version of that story is completely different to yours. And it's not even when they've been drunk or me. But there's so many different things to this in terms of how much do we actually question a lot of these things anyway? I mean, look at some of the politicians that we've got, say, leading the countries. Look at how many things we get shown on TV now, or on film, or on video, and on cameras and everything. There's a reason also why, when you're taking a look at false events, I am going some of this, you know, so often you hear with these big events, they'll confiscate all the phones and get rid of the evidences. Well, there can be reasons for that because they're offense and they don't want certain things picked up. But equally, when you think about the Matrix and the glitches in the Matrix, could they be resetting other timelines for all of us?
That is interesting, Catherine. There are two things come to mind. There's this, first of all, there's like this TikTok trend that I actually think is kind of cool. That's going where a boyfriend will come home and like take a nap, and the girlfriend will go change the date on the phone to 2 days later, and then wake him up and convince him he's been sleeping for 2 days. And when he grabs the phone, I mean, you see the panic, and granted, it's kind of funny, but I also think that's a little cruel, you know, like to make you think. You know, so if we can do it easily with our phones by just simply
Yeah.
changing the date, then what can they do with our phones just to reprogram events? Another thing that happened with my boyfriend and me is, as you guys know, we're super like holistic for the most part. And this happened like a few months ago. I was cleaning out our medicine cabinet in the bathroom. I was just going through and cleaning out stuff. And there was this like throat spray that was in the bathroom, like a numbing throat spray. And I walked down and I asked my boyfriend, "Do you still want this? Because it's not mine." And he goes, well, you had me get that for you. When? Like, I've never heard of this. I don't know this brand. I didn't even know there was this type of spray. And we had a massive argument. I was like,
Yeah.
I've never in my life asked for throat spray. And he found a text message where I had sent him a picture. And it still freaks me out, guys, because I've thrown it away. I wish I still had it to show you guys, because I still can't even remember the brand name. I've never asked for any, because I don't really, throat problems is not something I've ever really struggled with in my life. I'm not one that's prone to sore throats, right? Like I get some people are prone.
That's really freaky.
Isn't that freaky? And I'm just like, why didn't you say anything? Because this is like super chemical. Like that's not something I would typically ask for. And he was like, I don't know. You just asked me to get it, and you sent me a picture of it. And
so how do you think all this fits into things like Tartaria, Atlantis, all our history being rewritten, where the continents are, what shape the globe is? You know, when you expand this out bigger, I mean, isn't there something I watched a program about the Mandela effect, and Nick Alvio, and they're saying that didn't something like the Statue of Liberty used to be somewhere different or something in New York?
So I think so. I know there's something about the Liberty Bell as well, that it was like a different size or something. And I've seen the Liberty Bell multiple times. It was right by David Grieg's Shala. And there was something about the size.
There's huge things, and I honestly think the more I look into this, and I'm laughing like I do often, because I can see how, like, if my mother or my husband listen to this, you know, because they wouldn't believe in this at all. But these glitches in the matrix are absolutely real, and they happen. And I think we all know that Hollywood gives away all the clues. And I think things like sliding doors are a complete wink to this is reality, this is what happens. And why I think that's so important now is there's so much divide and conquer about how much of our reality can we create or not. And the reason I gave the example of, you know, if you're Christian, if you live in the middle of somewhere and you've never heard of Jesus or the Bible, you can't be expected to believe in something you've never heard of.
Right.
Well, I think this is how they can play the game so easily. There's so many people that think the whole concept of Tartaria and Atlantis is ridiculous. I've had so many conversations, people like, this is stupid, that's just a Disney film, that's just made up, you know. And you're like, but no, it's not. Look at this innate wisdom that we carry.
The evidence, the ruins.
Exactly. And the pyramids, and the royal we watching this show, we know actually any subject, pick any subject, and we can find lies about it. We can find how we've been deliberately, and look how much, I mean, within 2 generations, most people, not everyone, there'll be some people watching this are still living very naturally, you know, out in the countryside, growing their own food, knowing how to live off the land. But the vast majority of the human population who have got access to computers are now so separated from nature, they do not know how to. Oh, you're frozen.
I know you froze too. Am I still frozen?
You're still frozen for me. Am I still frozen?
Yeah, my thing's spinning now. It's probably the powers that be don't want us talking about this.
That's really spooky.
Oh, there we go.
We're back now.
It's for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's just urban legend. That's all it is, YouTube. It's just entertainment.
It must be me, because when I was doing my Resonant Code video, she just got kicked out halfway through. And then she came back in, we were on different sides of the Zoom screen, which of course happens whoever joins first. but then it messed up the whole recording because then all the names were there. But anyway, where was I? I really think when you sent this through, it was like that light bulb moment of these things are put in there because they are real. But if they are real, imagine the possibilities that gives us all. Now, if you're in a war-torn country, if you're in Gaza now, I am absolutely me. I know other people will have different beliefs on this. My belief system is you did not choose to be in Gaza and be going through what you're doing at the moment. That's mine. Other people will have different ones based on what they believe about karma and past lives and goodness knows what else. But I do think once this information comes to your awareness, then you have the opportunity to use it for your benefit and for the greater benefit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think it is humbling, right? It's like what we believe is real is actually, it is what the Yoga Sutras call Maya, illusion.
Yeah.
Just illusion. And we know that perception is reality, like how I perceive, and that's why we see people react differently to different situations, is because their perception of the event that happened. Yeah. And you can say, well, past experiences shape your perspective, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it literally, if you guys have not seen that show Sliding Doors or that movie, it literally is, sometimes it's just the smallest decision of, am I going to wear high heels or flats today, can change the outcome of your life. Completely. And it's what I've learned is that when we have our soul's mission on earth, our experience, our journey on earth, there are events that we're going to have to deal with, but how they happen can change depending on how the choices you make. Right. And that's why sometimes, like when we talk about karma, sometimes we don't see others experiencing the karma we want them to experience because they learn the lesson in a different way that they don't, so it's very nuanced. It's very nuanced. And it's really out of our control. Like a lot of things are out of our control in some senses with how, but it is because if I decide, I could decide, to wait an hour to I have to be careful what I say, guys, because of Robbie, to WALK my dog an hour later than I normally do for whatever reason. And that could cause a whole chain of events to happen. Completely. Would not have happened otherwise. And it's just so simple, like stuff we just don't even consider can actually change. And that's happening with all of us at the same time. All of us at the same time are making these decisions. And that's
why you get the math. Sorry to interrupt, but just based on building on what you just said then, this is the whole ploy of what they used in 2020, 2021. Because they understand this, but they understand human behavior. I mean, they've been studying it for centuries.
They're smart too. I will say they are smart.
Really, really evil genius. And because they know how to grab our attention subliminally, obviously, not obviously. So we know that all the message that was given out to us, there's so many screenshots, we've all seen them, the death figures, everything was just rolled out lockstep, literally across the globe but in Africa, it's like the joke, how do you avoid getting COVID? Turn the telly off.
That was the Amish. Somebody asked the Amish.
It was the Amish.
How do you handle the fancy flu so well? And they were like, we don't have a TV.
Yeah, completely. And I think if we really grasp that the most profound things that are going to affect our life are the simplest.
Yeah.
But we try and overcomplicate everything. And when we realise, just like this story, this is why I just loved it when you sent it through. I'd never heard of it. You always find the best mysteries. But when you find out and you start thinking about it, it will set off a chain reaction, be different for all of us watching. But where your mind goes is giving you clues. It's giving you clues to the answers that you personally need at the moment for how do you live your best life. So let your mind go there. And we are a species of storytellers, regardless of what you believe about how we got here and what genes haven't
been fairy tales, guys.
Regardless of what you believe in, that we are definitely a species of storytellers. So the stories, it's all in the you know, what does this trigger for you? What the message, you know, you can all hear the same story and you'll all go somewhere else with it, you know, because it will be specific to you, what it means for you. So when you listen to this, take note of where you go to, because there's a message in there for you.
You know, it's funny, Catherine, when I was going back and watching some other people's, like I sent you, I have an old video on this, but I went and watched some other people's just to see their perspective. And I love reading the comment section sometimes
Yeah.
because people are funny. And one buttercup guy was like, "Now I want to hear that other guy's. I want to hear what's going on in his reality. Like, what did he tell? Like,
Yes.
what is his story? Like, you guys, I swear to God, I wasn't drunk. Like, they didn't have us on the map, and then I went to bed in a hotel room and woke up in another hotel room. Like, I want to hear his. I want to hear
Exactly.
are they telling urban legends about his side of the story, because we don't have his side of the story. Like, it's wild, and there's so many of these guys. Like, I'm gonna go through my Mystery Monday because it's the multiverse. Like, this is basically what this is. There's the Cassiopeians, even in the Riding the Wave series, book one of the members of the group, Terry, talks about how he asked a question about how, and this actually happened to my boyfriend once too, how when he was young, he grew up in upstate New York, which upstate New York is lots of small towns, Appalachian Mountains, that he would go for these drives. And one night he literally drove through a ghost town, like boarded up buildings that he'd never seen before. He turned around and drove back, and he can't find that town. It's just disappeared. And the seas were like, it's a parallel reality. That same thing happened to my boyfriend. You know, when you're traveling back and forth to India, the stages when you're home between trips are really funky. Like when you go to India and spend a lot of time, then you got a few months back home, and you're going back to India. It's a weird mind space. It's just a funky, like, weird space you're in, kind of uncomfortable. And he, in between his first and second trip, he was still kind of jet lagged. So he, at that time, his parents had land up in North Georgia. So he would do that at night. He would go for these long drives, just out through the mountains, these small towns. And he said the same thing happened to him, that he drove by a restaurant and he thought, oh, I've never seen that before. And then the next night he took the same road. He was like, I'll just turn around at that restaurant. And he still to this day cannot find that restaurant. Still to this day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wild.
No, I'm going quiet because I can think of examples like that with me as well. And I think I mean, look at the Bermuda Triangle. You know, there's so many things. I mean, I've been trying, if anyone knows James Redfield, I've been trying to get him on to do an interview about the Celestine prophecy for ages, and I
Oh,
can't.
I love that. I would love to watch that.
I just, because I'm just obsessed with those. And there's so many messages in there. I think these things, I think they're important for us to ponder and think back. And that most importantly for me, it's like, okay, how can we use this to create the reality that we do want? What reality are we going to choose to step into?
Talk about manifesting. It's not about making a vision board. It's just whether you're going to go for your double AOK at one time or the next time. How's it going to have a domino effect or a butterfly effect? I mean, I've said that, you know, if the story they tell us about America is true, if people got on boats from Europe and came here, I've always said that, like, if one ancestor of mine decided at the last minute not to risk it, there's a bunch of people that wouldn't be here right now. Right. You know, so it's like every decision we make has it shows how powerful we are. And Catherine, what do you think? One last question. What do you think happened in that flight? Like, did he just appear?
Exactly.
Like, did nobody know?
At what stage in the process did he appear? Exactly. I mean, where did he board the flight? You know, what happened there? It's just,
when you take long flights, like I've taken, like, a flight from Japan from Europe would be, especially in the 1950s, it would have been a long flight. When you take long flights like that and you're up and down, you kind of recognize people on your flight. Like when you go to baggage claim, especially when I'm delusionally tired and I'm looking for baggage claim, I'm looking for people I recognize from my flight to know I'm at the baggage claim. So I'm like, you know, did he just appear when they were going through customs and nobody noticed that this man just all of a sudden started walking with them? Like, I'm confused about this. Like, what did the other passengers notice?
We used to have a program in the UK when I was a child called Mr. Ben. And Mr. Ben would go into the dressing room and every time and try on some outfits in a posh men's tailor. It was a cartoon thing. And when he opened the curtain, he'd be in a different country, in a different reality. And it's just like that, isn't it? It's exactly
like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
All in plain sight. You know, there's a reason. I used to get very confused when I forget who said that. Who was it who was famous that said, it's probably bloody Einstein, that I don't believe Einstein said any of it, but you know, a man will not imagine anything that they're not possible of.
Yeah.
But sorry, I didn't say that very well. You know, I would not imagine something that's out of my capability to achieve, in
Yeah.
theory. And I think there's all these little things when you look back about the cartoons, the Simpsons, all the different the films, the subject matters of it. It's because it's real. I mean, look at what's happening with AI. They've been predicting this in the movies for years. Come back to the Matrix again. You know, there's so many other examples as well. It's just that's the most obvious one. So I loved it when you sent this through, and it really got me thinking. And I think I really can't wait to hear from your listeners.
I know. Well, I have one
Really
more
good.
hypothesis that might freak more people out about. I talked about the flight. Is it possible that there are versions of ourselves living in different realities? So could this man have boarded the flight with those people in his reality, and he in their reality, and something switched in the psyche, the consciousness? So therefore he was confused because his consciousness switched. Does that make sense? Different reality.
Makes perfect sense, because when you look at schizophrenics, a schizophrenic can have type 1 diabetes in one
Yep.
persona, and not have that disease in another. Now, how do you explain that? It's all similar sort of things. It's
and I don't want to freak people out. Like, I don't want to be like, there's multiple of me walking around. You know, like, no, like, is that what happened? Like, is there a reality where Catherine and I are neighbors, and she moved to America, I moved to England? Like, is there, you know, it's just, is there a reality where Hillary Clinton won in 2006? I don't know. Like, it's so, in the fact that there could be multiple of these different, I mean, I'm glad I'm living in this one, but if there's a better one I'm living in, it's like, you know,
if there's one where I'm blonde, I want to know if there's one where I'm blonde.
So, well, and I can't wait to hear you guys. Like, this is a mind bender. It's a mind scratch. And I think in some ways it's just so out of the realms of what we consider to be possible, but yet we've been conditioned to consider certain things possible and others not. So, I mean, do you guys think this is a hoax? Even if it's a hoax, it does still open up a conversation. You know? So, like, what if we have any Japanese viewers, let us know what your country says about this, because I personally believe that this happened. I don't know if the full story is as accurate over time, if things have gotten shifted and changed as urban legends do, but I do think the initial thing happened. I don't think the Japanese government has released any information about it, because why would they? But I think what has happened is people involved in the situation came home and told their family, and they told friends, and that's how this story became an urban legend, became a story we're talking about here. And so I did feel
really, really sorry for the security guards that were guarding the hotel.
Could you imagine?
It's just my luck. I promise you, we haven't left and gone.
Left.
People don't just disappear into thin air, they'll be told.
It's like we just disappeared. I mean, bless those guys' heart. They probably all needed some massive therapy over.
Completely, you would.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's one thing to talk about and to have little situations where you think, but something that major to happen, and it to happen to multiple people, to be involved in this and be like, you'd feel like you were in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, wouldn't you?
I'm not going to let my husband watch this, because then next time he tells me he has picked his clothes up off the floor and unloaded the dishwasher, then he'll just say, I did. In a different reality, I did it. Just not in this one. So I might use this, actually. I could use this quite a bit. In my reality, I did pay the tax. And
right. Like, I promise I paid.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, go check the other parallel universe.
Yes, I think we can have some fun. But I really do want to hear, because it's like when I had such fun with some friends doing a book club, the thing I loved, I didn't really care what book we were reading. I loved the fact that 10 of us could read the same book and all pick up on completely different things that were important to us and that we noticed, you know, we'd come out saying, do we all read the same book? You know, and I think this is why, that's life, isn't it? That's why we all see life so differently. And so I want to hear from everyone watching this, when you heard Bryce say about the story at the start, what did that trigger for you? Where did your mind go? Because I think there's clues in this.
Yeah. I think there is too. Now we can talk about this in another episode too. There is some weird stuff about Andorra as well that I kind of looked into. It's a principality that's ruled by both well, Macron, French and
Yes,
Arab, and they're considered the two princes. It's like one of the only countries in the world that's actually ruled, and it's tiny.
yeah.
And so there's some questions I have about this land as well. Like so that opens up a whole other conversation of like what is happening in Andorra.
Yeah.
Do we have any viewers from Andorra? I've never met anybody from Andorra. It's so small.
I
It's such a
haven't.
small country.
But we do need to look into that, because when I started seeing the Macron, I know it's just because he's the current president, but that opens up another issue, that the doctor that was speaking up about Bridget Macron apparently committed suicide yesterday.
That news has not reached us here. I mean, guys, we're filming this on Thursday, so you're watching this on Monday.
Yeah, it might well do. Well, have a look, and I'm waiting to see what Candace Owens does with that information, because
did you see Candace Owens' latest video?
Well, she didn't mention it yesterday, but
the one about where she released.
I saw that
Trump
about
actually
when
called
Trump
her
spoke to her about that. There's really big things happening in the control grid at the moment, and I think we need to make sure that we choose which door very carefully we step through.
Yes, so I will do that, you guys. I'll look into Andorra, and we can do a follow-up of it, because I
can we do another follow-up on this next week then on your channel? Well, I think we should do an Andorra follow-up.
You want to do it on your channel on next week?
I think we should do it on yours, because then we'll have the listeners that have seen part one.
Okay, well, let me look into it, because I just briefly looked into it and I was like, that's weird. Like there were just some things that were really strange to me about it. And again, like I said, I've never met, and I've traveled the world, you guys. I feel so blessed, and I've never met anybody from Andorra. No, so let me know if we get anybody from Andorra watching.
If you do, reach out to Bryce, because we need to speak to you. Yeah.
Please. And the guy did speak French. He did speak French. That was his language, his first language. I forgot to say that. His French was French. It wasn't a different, like, that would have been weird if he'd be like coming out speaking a language no one knew. But yeah, so yeah, I will look into that, guys, and we'll look into that for you. And and I will check out I mean, again, very strange.
Very strange. Thank you. Let's see what they come up with. Really good fun one. Great choice, guys. I really enjoyed that.
We're the Nancy Drews of the internet. So
yeah.
So all right, everybody, have a wonderful week. I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. And for everybody around the world, I hope you also had a wonderful 4th of July weekend, even though it wasn't a holiday.
We'll celebrate with you. We'll celebrate with you.
So, all right, guys, we will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.